Welcome to the 2012 Fall Webinar Series, sponsored by the United States Department of Agriculture's People's Garden Initiative. For the next hour, you'll be learning best practices for volunteer engagement in the garden. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our technical facilitator, Jerry Schneider, and the rest of our virtual hosts at Kansas State University. I'm Annie Cicerini with USDA's People's Garden Initiative. Today's instructor is Lori Jean Mantooth, who is the Director of Training Programs for Points of Light. Lori Jean is responsible for the development and delivery of training and technical assistance services to nonprofit and government organizations. She develops training, tools, curricula, online courses, newsletters, and other capacity-building materials to help organizations more effectively engage volunteers. She grew up in Tennessee and now resides in Atlanta, Georgia. Before working at Points of Light, Lori Jean coordinated the statewide Learn and Serve program for Tennessee 4-H youth development. Lori Jean will be joined later in the program by Rick Graydon of USDA's Farm Service Agency. Rick has worked at Farm Service Agency for 27 years and volunteers as the garden coordinator for the Land of Lincoln and Partners Community Garden in Springfield, Illinois. Participants can ask Lori Jean and Rick questions via Twitter using hashtag AskPGI. I will ask these questions at the end of the session. The title of today's presentation is Engaging Volunteers in the Garden. Lori Jean, the virtual floor is all yours.
Great. Thank you, Annie. I'm so excited to be part of your fall webinar series. And this afternoon, for the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about how you can engage volunteers in your garden in a way that will help you to make your garden more sustainable. So we're going to be looking at some best practices for volunteer engagement, including how you identify service opportunities for volunteers, and how you can recruit the volunteers to help you make your garden more sustainable and even expand the work that you're able to do. So in case you're not familiar with Points of Light, I just wanted to give you a very quick introduction. We are the world's largest organization that focuses primarily on volunteering and helping people to engage in service. And our mission is to inspire, equip, and mobilize people to take action that changes the world. We do that primarily through 4 different channels. One of those is Hands-On Network. This may be the one that you are most familiar with. This is a network of 250 volunteer centers around the country and in 20 other countries as well. Generation On is our youth and family service arm. AmeriCorps Alums is a network of the 750,000 people who have served through AmeriCorps over the last 20 years. And we also have the Points of Light Corporate Institute that works with companies on how to build and maintain their employee volunteer programs. So let's get started. In today's session, we're going to be looking at potential roles for volunteers and then some best practices for engaging those volunteers, particularly around recruitment, recognition, and retention. And then, as Annie said, later we're going to be joined by Rick Graydon of the Illinois FSA Land of Lincoln and Partners Community Garden to share some really great examples of how they use volunteers. So the first step in evaluating your volunteer program or starting one from scratch is to think about what you actually need and what you have to offer. So the first question to ask yourself is, how do you currently engage volunteers? I understand that most of you probably do engage volunteers in some way, but think about if that works, if it's enough. What are the things that you could really do at your garden? Think specifically about the tasks that you may be doing, you or the other staff or the people that are working on your garden already. What are all the things that are involved? Can you really accomplish all that you want to do? Maybe you want to plant more, maybe you want to plant different things, maybe you want to do just some new programming or educational efforts at a school or with other groups. And are you able to do all of those things now? And if not, then how can volunteers help you to do that better or to do more things? And then narrow that down very specifically to the needs that you have that volunteers can fulfill. Also, you want to think about what you have to offer volunteers. There are lots of different things that you may be offering them. For some people, they just want to get out in the great outdoors, or they want to learn a new skill. Maybe they've never gardened before and they want to learn how to do that. Or maybe it's a chance to maybe have a piece of the harvest when that is ready to come in. So think about what you have to offer and why people would want to come and volunteer with you. Then you want to narrow it down a little more and think specifics and logistics. So what are the number of volunteers that you actually need? So this may be looking at the tasks that you have involved or even the supplies that you have. If you only have supplies for 20 volunteers, you don't want to engage 50 volunteers to come in one day, but you want to figure out how you can space that out a little bit. Also think about the point of contact. Is it you? Is it someone else at your office or another community volunteer? But who is the person that potential volunteers can contact to learn more about the garden, to learn more about things that they can do? Also, what is the time commitment that's involved? Is this a one-time project? Is it a case where you need volunteers to come for one day a week for the whole summer? So figure out exactly what the time commitment is. And then also think, is there a way to be creative with that? So if you do need someone to come once a week for the entire summer, but you can't find any volunteers with that kind of time, then how can you split that up a little bit to make sure that everyone has the skills and the time available to commit to get the things done that you need done? Also think about any age restrictions you might have. And in particular, I'm thinking of children. Are there tasks in the garden that children can do? Or are there some that maybe they can't? Think about safety as a primary factor of that. Or also liability. Is it something where they have to have a parent or guardian? Can they come as a school group? And even if they can't do some of the heavy labor, are there other things that they can do and learn as well? Also think about the skills that you need your volunteers to have. Do you need people who are experienced gardeners? Maybe you do for some of your tasks, but maybe you don't for others. It could be that they can just come in, you can teach them on the job, and they could turn out to be really amazing, passionate volunteers for you. And also think about the plot itself, the area, and is it accessible for people with disabilities, particularly those with mobility issues? So is it are the paths wide enough for someone in a wheelchair? Do you have sidewalks? Is the ground rocky? This is just something to be aware of so that you can advertise it that way when you do your recruiting, if it is accessible, or that you can find potentially other tasks that they can help you do where anyone of any ability could participate. I would also encourage you to think creatively when you are thinking about all the different ways that you can engage volunteers in your garden. So, of course, the things that come naturally to mind are planting and weeding and harvesting and all of those basic gardening tasks, but also think about other things that you might do or that you could do. So you could have volunteers that help you with your education programs. They could help with setting it up, advertising it, teaching it. You could even bring in volunteers from other organizations to be your skills-based volunteers to come and lead educational classes for people of all ages. They can help with special events. That can be fundraising, planning the event, providing food and beverage, whatever tasks are involved in your events that you want to have. And also think about visitor services. So is your garden open to the public in a way that people can come, learn, and observe and see how things work? And so you could have volunteers to serve as docents for that, or just as greeters, or to help just spread the word in the community. If you have a farmer's market type of event, they can help you with selling plants or setting up the table, even recruiting other local farmers to come and be part of that. They can help with building and maintaining fixtures like sheds and fences, picnic tables, those type of things. And I know one key thing that most people need, of course, is maintenance during the summer, and particularly if this is a school garden. So you can have volunteers that help you to maintain it when the students and teachers aren't there every day. Volunteers can also help you to recruit and engage other volunteers, particularly if they're having a really good experience volunteering with you. They're going to want to tell other people about it so they can be your best voice out in the community. There are other things that you may not even think of initially as part of a garden, but these are things that volunteers can do to help you expand your capacity and do more things. So if they're doing some of these tasks, maybe you can be focusing on other things. So they could help you with writing thank you cards for volunteers or sponsors. They could be in charge of the water or snacks that you're providing. They can go around and take pictures and videos or talk to volunteers and get their stories, and you can use those things in your marketing. They can also help you manage your social media networks. They can also help to make the garden more fun. So if you have someone who is an artist, but maybe they don't like to actually garden, they can help to create signs and other things and pieces of artwork that you can hang around the garden just to welcome people and make it a fun environment. They can also help you to write your stories for the newspaper, for the blog, for your website. And then something also to think about is childcare for volunteers. So maybe they could be leading an activity that's appropriate for really small children while their parents and older siblings are involved in the tasks in the garden. You'll see here on the screen now our project leadership chart, and this is something that we use a lot within our hands-on network of affiliated organizations as they are planning service projects of all kinds, particularly those with large groups. And a lot of times in a setting like a garden, it may be that you have a large group coming in to get a lot of work done in one day. And using a structure like this, just like in any business, can actually help you to expand what you're able to do that day and take a little bit of the stress off of you. So you could be the person in the blue box, the service leader, the person who is overseeing the project in general. And then you have a volunteer who coordinates the other volunteers. They're doing recruitment, pre-registration, recognition at the end, making sure the volunteers have their T-shirts, their supplies, everything that ensures a good volunteer experience. Then you would also have your task leader. This is someone who is over one particular part of the project. So one thing that we do a lot is working in a school, say painting classrooms. So we may have someone that is over all of the painting part, but then we have teams. So a project captain would be someone who works with a small group of volunteers, maybe in one classroom. And then the task leader oversees all of the project captains to help them get all of that work done. So as you can envision a hierarchy, per se, like you have in your office, it can work with your volunteers as well. So if you have each person supervising no more than 10 volunteers, then it helps to share the responsibility and spread the workload out so that everyone can get more work done more efficiently. So let's talk about recruitment. Now that you have identified some of the roles that volunteers could do with you in your garden, and you want to think about how you actually go out and get the people to come in and serve with you. One thing to note is a report that came out from Independent Sector in 2001 was that 71% of people who are asked to volunteer actually do. So you may know from personal experience that it's really hard to say no to someone when they ask you to do something, especially volunteering. So the personal ask is always your first and best effort. But you also want to think about what motivates people to volunteer. Maybe they do just want to get out and be outdoors. Maybe they want to be affiliated with your garden because they know that you do great things. Maybe they just want to meet new people. So think about what motivates people to serve, and particularly why they want to serve in a garden and in your garden, because most communities have more than one, and if there are a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of demands on people's times, think about why they would want to come and serve with you. But you also want to think about why people may not want to serve. And this is volunteering in general, but also volunteering in a garden in particular. So think about the challenges that people may have and how you can overcome those. For example, we mentioned earlier there may be someone who's never gardened before and they're just scared and they think they don't know how to do it. And so you can help to encourage them and let them know that you'll give them all the training and support that they need when they come to serve. So you can alleviate their fears and potentially recruit a really good volunteer. When you start your recruitment, you want to target your message very carefully. So craft something that is short but clear as your recruitment message. We encourage you not to say, just come out and volunteer on Saturday, but to actually say what you want to do. So come on Saturday, join us for this project, and here's the potential impact that it can make. So if your garden is raising food to give to the local food bank, tell people that. Make sure they know up front that they're not just coming to help grow food, but that food is going to go help their neighbors who might be in need. Also think about your target audience. Who do you think might be interested in serving? So in our last slide, we were talking about why people would want to serve. So now think specifically about who you think you might want to target to encourage to come and volunteer with you. So who might be interested? Who might have the time available? Who might have the skills that you already need or could learn the skills that they're going to need? And also who just can be your voice in the community. So we mentioned earlier that you want people who have a good experience with you because they're going to go out and tell other people about it. And so sometimes it helps to target those people that you think might have connections in the neighborhood or the community and can recruit other volunteers to come as well. So once you know who you want to target, post your recruitment message where you can actually reach those people. We'll talk about some ideas in just a moment. And also use connections you already have. So think about people that are already volunteering with you if you have volunteers already. Also think about parents and older siblings of students if you're at a school garden. And also staff and volunteers from partner agencies. So how do you spread the word and get the message out to recruit volunteers to come and serve with you? Of course, social networking is huge, and people are using Facebook and Twitter, even Craigslist, to recruit volunteers now. And I've seen several of our organizations that have a lot of luck with that. And so if you have a Facebook page, use that to let people know what's going on and how they can come and be part of your work. Also think about listservs that you have access to and websites out there. Most of these websites that we have listed here, actually all of them are free. And so allforgood.org, that actually populates volunteer opportunities on the Points of Light website. So that's part of our organization, and you can post any opportunities there for free. There are other really good sites that are also popular and have a strong success rate at volunteermatch.org and idealist.org. And don't discount the more traditional forms of media. So newspapers, even the radio, if you have community bulletin boards where you can post things, a lot of cities have a Facebook page where you can go and post opportunities there. And so just make sure you tap into all the opportunities that are outlets that you have. And then think about organizations and associations that are in your community. So of course you have schools, but you also have colleges. And a lot of times colleges have students who are eager to get out and serve in their community where they are, whether they grew up there or they're just there for 4 years. You can also tap into the sororities and the fraternities that are there and all the other student organizations. Then we have 4-H and FFA. I know from my years of being in and working for 4-H that there's a huge service ethic there that the 4-H members want to get out and serve, and the FFA as well. And you'll see that from Rick's presentation later this afternoon that they have had a really strong partnership with their local FFA chapters. I suspect that many of you already are using the Master Gardeners in your community, and maybe some of you on our webinar today are Master Gardeners, but you know what a great resource they can be in volunteering and getting the work done, and also teaching other people. Then you have your civic organizations and your faith groups, and sometimes just a neighborhood association, or just look around your community. As you're driving to work tomorrow morning, look around you and see who's out there that might have an interest in helping you to work in your garden. So as you're getting the word out, we suggest that you have people pre-register. Whether they're coming for one day or they're going to be there one day a week for the rest of the year, you need some basic information on them. So you want their contact information. You probably want to find out their age, particularly if you have age restrictions, or at least have a box that says, I am over age, whatever, your restrictions are. If they're coming with a group or from a business, you want to find out their organization affiliation. Also find out if they need any special accommodations or requirements. So this would be someone who has a disability. If they're in a wheelchair, there are a lot of ways to build or buy garden implements that have longer handles so they can still do a lot of the work. And it helps to find that out ahead of time so that you can have all of that ready to go and you don't put anyone on the spot by not having things ready for them to pick up when they get there. Also find out if you're serving food or if they have any other allergies. You want to find out what those allergies are so that you can prevent any bad reactions if possible. And if you are doing a project that does require some specific skill, you want to be sure to ask for that. So if you are asking for a volunteer to come and teach a class at your garden, you want to make sure that that person actually has experience with teaching that. It's very likely that you already know that person and you know if they do or not, but if not, you certainly want to find out, if they're going to help you with your special event or if they're going to help with building different pieces, benches or tables. Just find out if they have the skills or if they have the time to learn the skills so they can do what they need to do. So when thinking about the volunteer experience, I encourage you to think about your own experiences as a volunteer. So think about something that was a really meaningful experience for you and what made it meaningful. What was just a really good volunteer experience? And likely it was something that you wanted to do, something that you were excited about, and you knew a lot of the details. So you knew where to be, you knew when to be there, you knew what things to bring with you, what clothes to wear, if you needed to wear closed-toed shoes, or if you needed to bring your own lunch. When you got there, you knew where to park or how to take public transportation. You knew where to check in. Somebody greeted you. They felt excited to see you there, and you felt that they were welcoming you, that you were really needed. And so think about all the things that have made your volunteer experiences good, and then how can you recreate that for somebody else? So part of that is just the pre-project communication, making sure that you have told them all that they need to know before they ever get to the site, that they know where to park or how to get there on public transportation, that you have some type of a check-in where you are welcoming them. If you can provide food and beverage or at least water, that's always a good thing. Or be sure to let them know if they need to bring water with them. Have enough supplies for everyone. There's nothing worse than having people stand around because you don't have enough of rakes or hose or whatever it is that people are going to be using that day. If volunteers' time is wasted because you don't have enough supplies, they're not going to feel as good about their experience, and they're not as likely to come back and volunteer again. You also want to make sure that you provide recognition, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment, so I don't want to go into it much now. But I do want to mention reflection, and this is a key element of service learning. So particularly if you're working with a school group, whether K through 12 or higher education, you want to include some type of reflection. And even if it's not a school group, it's always a good idea to include this. And that's just some time for volunteers to think about what they did, what they learned from it, what it meant to them. So if they know that they're helping to raise food for a food bank that's going to help their neighbors, there's some meaning behind that. And so help them and encourage them just to take some time to think about that, to reflect on it, and then we hope that the next step is going to be that they want to continue to do something in that area. So maybe they want to continue to come and work with you in the garden. Maybe they want to help you to do the harvest and actually take the food to the food bank. Or maybe they want to start volunteering at that food bank as well to help even in different ways to feed the people in need in the community. So the reflection element is always a good part of a volunteer experience. You also want to include time for orientation and training. So this is a good time for you just to orient people to the work that you do in the garden. So it could be your mission and vision for the organization, just the values of what you want to do there, making sure that people understand that they're not just coming for free labor for a day, that there is some meaning behind this work, and they're helping your garden to do whatever your mission is. Help them to see the way that they can impact your work and also the broader community, and the importance of volunteers to the garden. So earlier when we were talking about what you want to accomplish and volunteers can help you to do more of that, help them to see that the volunteers are really vital to what you're doing. Make sure they understand their responsibilities and any expectations you might have of them. Always review safety procedures and also any other rules and regulations that you might have. Particularly be aware of this if you're working with some first-time volunteers or first-time gardeners. And for training, you need to know if this is something that people need to be trained before they get there or if it can just be on-the-job training. So just help people to know that, especially if they're new and they're learning something that's new to them. Just reassure them, provide them the training that they need, because if they are trained and equipped, they're going to be a lot more efficient and you can get a lot more done. Recognition is a huge part of the volunteer experience. Of course, most people don't want to say, I'm volunteering for the recognition, but it always makes you feel good when someone says thank you. And you can never thank your volunteers enough. So you can thank them when they sign up, when they get there that day, as they're serving, at the end of their service. If they come back over and over, thank them every time they're there. A lot of places will have a large annual recognition event, and those can be really good. But it helps if you get to know your volunteers, particularly your long-term volunteers that come a lot, and find out if a big formal event is really going to be meaningful to them. Maybe they just want to have a lemonade reception one afternoon in the garden where they can just sit and look at all the great things that they're doing, and they can just chat and spend some social time with other volunteers. Some people really like plaques and awards, and some people don't. Some people get really embarrassed by that. So as you get to know your volunteers, that'll help you to know how to thank them best. But just saying thank you is never wrong. It's always a good thing to thank your volunteers as much as you can. So it's a way to celebrate their contributions, to talk about the outcomes of their work. So, you know, the harvest was this many pounds or this many bushels, or we fed this many people. Tailor it to the individual as much as you can. So as you get to know your volunteers, don't feel like you have to recognize all of them in the exact same way. As I said, some may really like a plaque. Someone else may like a handwritten note of thanks, and someone else may like for you to just meet them for coffee one morning. So as much as you can and as much as your budget and time will allow, try to tailor your recognition to the individuals. And I do know this is harder when you have large groups come in, but you can still find ways to thank them. And one of the easiest ways, and something we do a lot, is just to send them a follow-up email or letter with pictures included so they can see before and after or see themselves working. When you are doing recognition, particularly with your long-term volunteers, you should give it frequently and consistently and honestly. So if someone is coming several times a week or a month, don't wait until the end of their time to say thank you or to recognize them. So say it frequently, as often as you can. Be consistent with it, but also give it honestly. Don't say thank you just to say thank you. You want to make sure that it's something that people understand that you really mean, and it's a way to help them feel appreciated. And just as you were thinking creatively about ways to include volunteers in the garden, how can you think creatively about recognizing those volunteers? So we've talked about some ideas already. There are lots of different ways, and it will vary based on your community, the group of volunteers, the things that they're interested in. But we encourage you to think creatively about that, and you may just switch it up every year or every couple of months, just to help volunteers know how much you appreciate the work that they're doing. There are also a few special recognition opportunities, and one of them is International Volunteer Day, which is actually today. So to all of you who are volunteers, thank you for the work that you do. And here in the U.S., we also have National Volunteer Week, and that's April 21st through 27th of 2013, and it's always around that same time of April. International Volunteer Day is always December 5th. And National Volunteer Week does shift a little bit, but it's that week of April every year. And these two and other national days of service, so MLK Day, Cesar Chavez Day, Make a Difference Day, different things throughout the year, it's a really good chance to bring volunteers together, and not just to work, but to also recognize them for what they're doing. And here at Points of Light, we also have some national recognition programs that are really good ways to honor your volunteers, especially those who are long-term volunteers, who are investing lots of time and effort and passion into your work. So at Points of Light, we manage the President's Volunteer Service Award, which actually comes from the White House, but it's something that we manage here on a contract basis. And this is something where you can recognize your volunteers based on the number of hours that they serve each year. And there are different levels of that, and there are ways to recognize young people and adults and also families that serve together. We also have the Daily Point of Light Award. That may be a phrase that you recognize from the first President Bush, where he talked about 1,000 points of light. And that's actually where our organization was founded, was out of that idea 20 years ago. And so we, to this day, we still honor a daily point of light every day. And the L'Oreal Women of Worth is a new partnership that we started a few years ago with L'Oreal, the makeup company, and they honor women who do amazing volunteer work out in the community. So you can visit our website at pointsoflight.org to find out about all of those. So whether you have a young person who is volunteering with you for the summer, or you have a really strong just a community partner or any type of volunteer that you may want to recognize, these are ways that you can do that. And just wanted to mention briefly, because you are working with volunteers, and people are people and come with different personalities and motivations, just wanted to mention a couple of ways that you might think of dealing with perhaps some difficult volunteers. So I encourage you to deal with the problems as they arise. So as things come up, don't wait until the next week or the next time they come back just to wait and see if it happens again. Try to deal with it as it comes up. Be very specific about what has happened and why it's a problem. Give feedback on the actions, not on the person. So there are lots of trainings, and most of you are probably supervisors and you have dealt with this before. But when you give feedback to people, you don't want to talk about you as a person are this, but talk about the particular action and how it can be corrected or how it does not match up with what you really need the people in your garden to do. And also try to put it into perspective. When possible, try to redirect volunteers. So a lot of times we see this when there's a large group. There may be people that stop working or are causing problems or just aren't being productive, and it may be that they're bored and they just need something different to do, or that they're in a task that they don't feel comfortable with. Maybe they didn't get the training they needed, or they weren't paying attention in the training and they don't feel like they know how to do it. And so rather than mess up or tell somebody, they just don't do it. They don't do anything. And so as you see volunteers who may not be productive or doing what you think they're supposed to be doing, try to redirect them. Find a different task for them to do. Ask them even just to walk around and encourage other volunteers, but give them a task so that their time is well used and it doesn't distract other volunteers either. And it's possible that you may need to ask a volunteer to leave. If you have been clear up front about what the expectations are, about what, if there are rules and regulations around what they can wear, what they can do, what their age limits are, then it's okay to ask a volunteer to leave. It's awkward, and they may not want to come back again, and they may tell their friends, but the result may actually be better for you if the volunteer is truly disruptive. But we do encourage you to remember that everyone has something to give. So maybe they aren't the best gardener in the world, but maybe they're really good at social media, and they can help you manage your Facebook page, or they can help you do something else in the garden. So try to find that something that that person has to give. And also, don't assume negative motives. So when someone does something, I think as humans that we often just assume they did it to be a bother or to cause problems or because they have a bad attitude. But there are lots of reasons that people may do something. So try to assume the best in people, that they are there with the best of intentions, and that you may just need to talk with them and try to help redirect them to something that's going to be helpful. So thinking about all the time and effort that you put into defining your volunteer roles, recruiting the volunteers, training them, engaging them, supervising them that day, and then if you turn around and think about next week, and if you had to do that all over again, that's not going to be very time efficient or very pleasant in a lot of cases. So retention is the way that you can help build your capacity and build your volunteer base. Retaining your current volunteers is your goal. So it's helping the volunteers to feel good about themselves, their service, and the impact that they're making in the community. So think about this not as a separate thing. So we do often talk about recruitment, recognition, and retention as three separate things. But retention is actually something that goes throughout the volunteer process. So while you're recruiting the volunteers, make your message inspirational. Help them to see the impact that they can have before they ever show up at your site. Inform them about all the project details and help to build that momentum. You know, this is going to be fun. We're going to do this. You're going to meet new people. You're going to learn new skills. You're going to help things grow. So whatever it's going to be that helps to motivate your volunteers, include all of that in your pre-project communication. As they're serving with you, motivate them, encourage them, and support them without taking over. I know this is something that is personally hard for me and for a lot of people, I think, that as you see someone doing something, if maybe they're not doing it that well or that quickly, or they're not doing it the way you would do it, it's really tempting to go in and just you know, kind of push them aside and do it for them. Even though you call it helping, you're really taking over. So just be cognizant of that. Think about how you can coach your volunteers and help them learn new things without taking over their tasks. And after they serve, recognize them. As we said, that's a key part of the volunteer experience. And just help them to see the impact of their service. So not just that they had fun, but that they really made a difference in the garden and in the community. And also take the time to let them know about future opportunities to serve with you or with your other community partners. So this is a way to keep them informed and keep them engaged and keep them coming back. So I did want to mention on our Hands-On Network website, and Hands-On Network, as I said, is part of Points of Light. At handsonnetwork.org, we have thousands of resources available to the public. They are completely free. And so you can find tools and resources. There is a tools and resources section up at the top of the page. We have a hands-on library full of things you can download. We have Start a Project, which is a section of all of project ideas with step-by-step instructions of how to do them. We also have some free online courses. And you can also sign up for Evolve, which is a free monthly newsletter that we send each month all around how do you engage volunteers. So this is engaging volunteers in any setting, not just in a garden, but a lot of the principles would apply. And as I said, all of these things are completely free. And in the volunteers section, we have a volunteer leader toolkit that walks you through project planning and a lot of the things that we've talked about today. And it also helps you to, there's a way to find your local hands-on action center. And these are our volunteer centers around the country and in other countries as well. So you can search and find one near you. They can help you plan your projects, recruit your volunteers, and keep you informed of training and other opportunities. And if you have questions for Points of Light even after today, you are always welcome to reach out to us at training@pointsoflight.org. That will come to me and my colleagues here, and we will help you as much as we can. You can visit our website, our blog, or follow us on Twitter @PointsOfLight. And we are always happy to help people as they are engaging volunteers. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our friend Rick Graydon in Illinois. Rick, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm there. Very good job, Lori. We picked up some pretty good points of that. Partners Community Garden. Started, I guess. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. The first screen, kind of our partners as we got started in this. I'll kind of preempt our garden here in Illinois. We are the USDA Farm Service Agency. Our mission is our USDA provide a safe, reliable, plentiful, nutritious food source for all. And so this kind of our community garden kind of goes right along with that process. Our state executive director, Sherry Giamanco, was very influential of it. That helps us also get our gardeners, gardeners volunteering like we want. It's important to note that we do not have a budget at all, so we are doing everything based here to plant this community garden. Just real quickly, the garden is a 1/4 acre in size, so it's not your normal small backyard garden. It's got some size to it. So anyway, there are some of our partners, and Risk Management Agency is also a USDA agency located here close to us. All those businesses that are listed there are ones that have donated something to the community garden that we use in our garden every year, all the way from fertilizer to seed to tillage of the garden, so on and so forth. And one thing that's probably important to note there, if you notice on this screen, the University of Illinois Extension Master Gardeners are very needed and are very, very willing to always volunteer for us from time to time. They're at our beck and call when we want to get them on the telephone to ask them questions. I was born and raised on a farm, and I thought I knew everything about producing a garden, but every once in a while there is a question that we have, and I've learned quite a bit from the Master Gardeners, and we move forward from there. Next slide, that is actually a sign that we have located out front of our garden. It's part of the recognition process, I guess, for ourselves that we have this community garden in Springfield, Illinois. But at the same time, it kind of puts that sign out there for, as you notice in the background in the right-hand side there, you see a car there going down the street. Well, that helps us. That gets us our recognition that people say, "Wow, what is that?" Which also helps get some volunteers for our garden. Next slide, the ATHENS FFA members. They are a small town close to Springfield here. Lori mentioned that your 4-H groups and your FFA members are a good source to get volunteers. We've been very, very fortunate that we've had 2 to 3 FFA groups that have been very involved in our garden project. They have advisors that are very willing and very excited about providing them as volunteers. One of the things that I guess I would pop out here, Lori was talking about volunteers. Some of these groups really look forward to community service projects because they get credit for that, for getting awards and honors later on. Illinois FFA members have their state convention here in Springfield, Illinois, and it is interesting to note that the day before the convention starts, all the FFA members pounce on Springfield, Illinois, and they do Habitat for Humanity volunteerism. They do lots of volunteer community efforts, and so those are great people to rely on, and they're very willing, they're very able, and they have the ability to help in the garden projects anyway. Just a few slides as I kind of talk through this. Somehow we're able to get our FFA members involved. We spend more time gardening for produce that can be eaten, but we try to beautify the garden also to get a little bit of an eye appeal, to get people to look at that garden as they go by, so they know that know what we're doing. So another thing that Lori mentioned, and I'm probably going to be hit and miss and try to summarize in the end, but one of the things that when we have a huge event like this one would be where we planted the garden that day, we're very, very lucky. We just finished our 3rd year of the garden. We've been lucky that we've got quite a bit of press coverage, not only newspaper but television. We were on a PBS channel. They come and filmed us and had a 30-minute segment on the garden here. So that public notification has helped us get volunteers. And our big projects are, we have about 3 big projects a year. Of course, the day of planting is a huge project, but we plant 120 tomato plants, 75 green pepper plants. I think it was 400 pounds of seed potatoes we planted, planted onions, green beans, sweet corn. You just can't name everything that we planted. We have all of our volunteers come that day and do the planting, and this is lunch afterwards. We planted the entire garden in less than 2 hours, and that's quite an undertaking when you see the size of the garden when it's all growing. So we're lucky that we not only have volunteers to help, provided lunch for all these volunteers, and that's always a great thing. A big undertaking this year that we didn't know exactly how it was going to work out, and as fortune would have it, and maybe it's just because things work out when you're doing good deeds. We planted quite a few potatoes. It was nip and tuck. Of course, this year of the devastating drought, we were surprised and excited that our garden did so well. But here we are harvesting potatoes, and take a look at the volunteers we have here. We're looking at this side of the garden being about 200 feet long, and we've got volunteers covering about half of that 200 feet collecting potatoes. The gentleman with his back to you that's got the hat on and the hoe, we didn't know how we were going to dig these up until about a month beforehand. I thought we were going to be digging these by hand, which was going to be one heck of an undertaking. But because he has antique potato plows as his hobby, collecting them, he was excited to come and plow the garden for us and turn the hills over so we could harvest the potatoes. And you can see that he just jumped right in to help us too. So not only did he provide a tractor and a potato plow that used to be pulled by a horse, he jumped right in and grabbed a hoe and helped us harvest. So it just, volunteerism, when you get everybody on board, it just feeds itself, and you just continually seem to get volunteers. Our big projects such as planting and harvesting potatoes, and then later on in the year we harvested turnips. We had all of our big volunteer onslaught of FFA members and community members and master gardeners, but our day-to-day, week-to-week gardening harvest of the garden is basically completed by 8 to 10 people that are within the agency here volunteering their time. Remember, I said we have no budget. Everything is donated, and there's no cost to anyone in this garden because we donate our time. We either work before hours or we'd work our lunch hour in the garden. So here's another. This is an FFA member harvesting potatoes. They dig right in. We've been very fortunate. Every volunteer that we've gotten has dug right in. That's interesting. Dug right into the potato patch here and harvested potatoes. But Lori, we've never had a difficult volunteer. We've never had someone that we've had to ask to leave. What we do is part of the recognition. Here's some pictures that we took. We couldn't include all the pictures because our public affairs officer is very good at taking pictures, but we actually sent these 5 members home with these couple tomatoes apiece and a couple potatoes. It kind of gives them, when they go back to wherever they came from, the school on that particular, when they go back to the school or the FFA members or go home, they get to show some of what they harvested. Get on through here. We kind of challenged some of our volunteers. This was turnip harvest day. We challenged our FFA members to find the largest turnip they could find, and that's kind of part of the recognition that's ongoing as you're doing the harvest. And here is another lunch that's provided by the same individual to feed our harvesters and our volunteers after our turnip harvest. Got a youngster here that's taking care of the pepper plants and doing a little bit of weeding there. Any pictures that you can take is very, very helpful. We got a couple of young 4-H members here. The young lady in the middle that's holding the box is the receiver of all our produce. Central Illinois Food Bank, we take all of our produce there. She's very good about giving recognition where it needs to be, even to us, to help us with our volunteering. And here is the cleanup of the garden. Actually, in noon Central Time, we're going to be out and loading all the garden equipment and storing it for the winter. So with that, I think we're at the end of our slides. I do want to point out a couple things before I do leave this. We found it best to organize, be certain that you've got everything staked out, ready. You know what, you've got all your supplies handy, as Lori said. Reward your volunteers if possible. if no more than a thank you, a pat on the back, make sure when those volunteers are walking off, going to their vehicles to leave, make sure that you touch base with them and thank them for what they've done. The Master Gardeners have been a big plus to us. We even had Master Gardeners show up and help us harvest from time to time. We provide the needed tools for our volunteers. If we have tools, if we need them to provide gloves or boots or whatever, we ask them to bring. And we also, to stimulate our own volunteers here in the building when we harvest our garden. It's kind of interesting. We call it the snack wagon. We employees that are willing to bring cookies and lemonade or a snack after we harvest the garden, so that kind of keeps local volunteers here in the building kind of excited about it. Something that's helped us out tremendously is that in the year 2011, we were selected as a Governor's Hometown Award here in Illinois for our gardening effort and all the volunteer and community effort that we put in here. And if you notice on this slide, we harvested this past year, even in the year, we harvested 16,173 pounds of fresh produce, and disperses it out to others. To say, I think I'm going to pat myself on the back here and all the FSA employees in Illinois that have been involved in this garden. We have really done a great job that we've provided, and it follows our mission that FSA was established by President Abraham Lincoln. With that, I think I'm done and need to turn it over to deciding where we are with questions.
Thanks, Lori, Jean, and Rick. Our first question comes from Twitter, and the question is, we need volunteer garden managers. How do we manage volunteers over a large geographic region?
Well, I guess I'll jump in here if it's okay. It was interesting to see the chart that Lori had set up on the PowerPoint slide presentation, leadership chart. We actually have I guess I've been targeted, drew the short straw or whatever, to be maybe the main person. I'm not sure, but anyway, I've been very, very fortunate here in Illinois that we have people that step up to the plate, and we actually just have someone responsible for taking over the tomato planting. So we have like a project leader totally, and then we break it down into, I guess, mini projects. That we even had one individual making sure that the onions were planted appropriately last year, this past year. So we just kind of break it up, and one person cannot do it all. Don't even try it, because the stress level will be too high. Find volunteers that are willing to take charge and to direct volunteers to plant different crops. We kind of have teams. So all the teams plant different things. When you finish that project, you see where you need extra help and delegate them to a different area.
And I would just echo what Rick said. We use a volunteer leadership model very similar to the way he described it in most of our projects. I know we, as the staff, could never get enough done in the community. We couldn't accomplish all we wanted without those leadership volunteers. I even have one of my coworkers who, in her free time outside of work, is a volunteer leader at a local garden here in Atlanta. And they have long-term volunteers that come several times a week and do a lot of the work. They just need some extra support. And so her job is just to recruit like 20 volunteers a month to come in and just help with cleanup and turning the compost and some different things like that. And so by having a volunteer who focuses just on one aspect of it, it frees up the leader to kind of manage things overall.
Our next question is, Master Gardeners have been a big help in our garden. What are your recommendations for recruiting Master Gardeners in your county?
I would say for reaching your Master Gardeners, and Rick, if you want to jump in on this one too, please do.
Go ahead, Lori.
Okay, so I would suggest that you find out who is responsible for the Master Gardener program in the county where you live. I don't know if it's always the Extension Office. It was in the county where I was involved several years ago. And so find out from them if they have an email listserv, if they know if gardeners are interested particularly in a certain part of the county. Maybe they live in your community, and they so I think they could help you to reach them, but also talk about not just we need extra hands, but this is how you can benefit the garden. So, you know, you're sharing your expertise, you're helping to feed the community, whatever the benefits are, just help to make that obvious in your recruitment of them.
I agree with Lori. We're lucky here in Illinois that the extension is who administers or just happened to be lucky enough that we needed a little advice on some of the plants we were planting, and we determined we'd get a match. We've developed a great relationship. We work with the same master gardener all the time, but then from time to time he will also call in extra. He'll recruit extra cavalry to help us out if we've got specific questions that he cannot answer. They're usually available anytime you need them, and they're excited about gardening, so it just breeds more excitement in your volunteers and your.
Well, I want to thank Lori, Jean, and Rick. So thank you both, and to everyone who participated in the second session of the People's Garden Fall Webinar Series. This session will be posted online for anytime viewing after closed captioning is complete. If you have questions about this series, you can email peoplesgarden@usda.gov. Join us again tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Daylight Time for our next webinar focused on native plants.